from my heart and from my hand. Why don't people understand my intention?
Happy to have you aboard here for the Really Big Barbecue Show.
We cook because we have to, and we grill because we want to.
Fine, how's it going?
You have a great show. I'm a big fan.
So what seems to be the problem here? This man looks like he's dead, and he's in the crackle.
Charbono! It's all about the Charbono, dude!
Succulent fish. What?
He ate 54 wieners.
But listen, Lavernius, shake a face.
I'm shaking like a dog shit peach seeds.
You could use it to fight off creeping marauders looking to take your steaks off your grills.
I just like being anywhere with Junior, Senior, and Diva.
Sounds like a whole other type of movie.
Wow. Yeah, really. Keep it hot, keep it clean, keep it lubricated.
We have top men working on it right now. Ooh, top men.
All right, welcome back to the second hour. Barbecue Central Radio Show on the Barbecue Central Radio Network. Thanks for joining me. John Markus coming up here in about 5 seconds. And Neil Straughter coming up after him, about 1:30. All right, let's go ahead and race over to the hotline. As promised, joining me for the next 25 minutes or so, creator, executive producer of Barbecue Pitmasters, which can be seen every Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard on TLC. He's an Emmy Award-winning producer. He won the chicken category 2 weeks ago at the New Paltz barbecue competition in New York, and is the pitmaster of Central Pork West barbecue team, here to take on all comers, haters, dare I say, supporters of Season 2 of Barbecue Pitmasters. Friend of the show, John Markus, joining us here on the Barbecue Central Radio Show. John, is there anything more pathetic than an internet radio show putting an Emmy Award-winning producer on hold?
I'll tell you something. When it comes to barbecue, I'm learning total humility.
Look, I humbly apologize. I mean, how disrespectful. Look,
no apology necessary, Greg. Listen, I'm somebody who can get a first place in chicken. I can also tank my brisket. So it doesn't matter to me. It's all good.
It's the romance of barbecue, right?
It's something in our blood, you know. We have the DNA that makes us want to do it. So you can't explain it to people. You just go out there and you just do what you got to do. You feel it.
All right, so let's talk about the show. And first and foremost, let me get this out, because you made this very clear in our communications here over the last couple of days, that if somebody was so inclined to want to call in this portion of the show tonight, you're taking calls. So that's toll-free number for those people that want to jump in tonight and ask you any questions or give you their take on Season 2 of Barbecue Pitmasters. It's 877-448-0433. Look, you go on any social network and you see a lot of little bit of disdain for the format change. And has the mortar fire started to die down a little bit, John, or is it still coming in pretty heavy, do you think?
You know, it's funny. I read every post. It's part of what I feel my responsibility to the barbecue community is. And I always find, because I have now done 4 of these shows.
Right.
This is the 4th version of the show. And the first wave are always the people that like to use words like suck and awful, and I'm throwing my DVR out the window. You hear those things in the first wave, and then that wave often gives way, as it has been lately, to people that have a more tempered view of the show, a little bit more like honest, open view. They're not out to kill it. They're out to understand what we're doing.
So what's the thought? I mean, why are people coming out with venom and vigor those first show or two, but then it seems to temper a little bit, as you said? Why? What is that reaction?
I have to say, I'm part of this problem, because Season 1 on TLC really did appeal to the purest of barbecue competitors. The people that go out and cook weekends or around that world, they're really invested in what competition barbecue is. They feel proprietary about it. They own it. They feel it's theirs. So they would like to keep on track with that kind of programming. So they're going to be the first to have that kind of reaction.
All right, so Episode 4 airs tomorrow night. This is probably one of the more anticipated shows because 3 of the 4 contestants very active on a few of the bigger barbecue forums, most notably the Barbecue Brethren forum website. You emailed me looking to get on tonight. You've seen the blow-by-blow from viewers of the show this season, really lighting up social media outlets, as I had said, kind of with their initial disdain in regards to the new format. Were you initially surprised at some of the reaction that you were getting, or is this something that you were actually anticipating, or was it somewhere in between?
I tell you, I think one of the strengths and the great weaknesses of the internet, it allows people to do hit and runs, to be snarky, to like say, boy, I can just go out there and I can like do a drive-by on something that I don't like, and I don't have to deal with the consequences of my words. So it didn't surprise me the level that I saw in the forums. Was it more than I anticipated? You bet it was. So I was a little surprised at the level of it, but not surprised that we were going to get it, because I knew what was being added to the show far before the viewer did. So being a purist and a barbecue competitor myself, I knew what they weren't going to like.
John Markus joining us here, executive producer, creator of BBQ Pitmasters, which airs on TLC every Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. John, do you think the first season's format would have been more likely to keep its legs had the outpouring of support been as big as the outpouring of discontent has been regarding season 2? You got the Facebook page for Pitmasters, the TLC's main Facebook page have both been lit up. The Kingsford Facebook page is getting some collateral damage as well. Was there this type of vocal support for the show and its format last season?
Those people weren't anywhere to be found. And that's the reason the show didn't come back in the way it was going to. Basically, it's all a numbers game for TLC, and I work for TLC in my show, and I'm very heavily invested emotionally and time-wise in the show that we're doing now. But the truth is they didn't come in great enough numbers to support the show. And if you look at the numbers now, it's really the same kind of, it's the people that are the most vocal and like to do the drive-bys that we're hearing from. They don't seem to represent what the numbers for the show are as far as actual viewers. They're just louder and they're just angrier.
So if these loud and angry people would have driven by last season and said, love this, keep it, there may have been more of an impetus to keep the format yet again for another season, you think?
I would say not may. I would say it would have happened.
Now,
we didn't hear from these people, and this is a great country where people can, they can say what they want. But it would have turned the heads of the executives at TLC. But the thing is that the actual numbers, I noticed that they set up I Hate Pitmasters Facebook page, and check the numbers out on that page. It's like the numbers of people that like to do that kind of thing fortunately aren't making a difference in how TLC views our show.
Did you get some calls from TLC saying, hey, we're getting a lot of negative feedback, or do they like the fact that people are showing up and talking about it, and publicity is publicity regardless of good or bad?
Well, listen, that's the old saw about, just get the name spelled right. And I'm like anyone else out there. I want as much love as I can possibly get. We're just human. I'd like everyone involved in barbecue to love this show, but TLC really does like something that generates discussion and talk, because it's important to be out there affecting a viewer, making them feel one way or the other. They have another hit show on their network, which I found out gets like often 95% negative mail, but it's one of their hit shows. It's just the equation of people that choose to do the drive-bys and to say, listen, I want everyone to know how it sucks. So those are numbers just about the people that love to use the internet to do the drive-bys.
John Markus, executive producer, creator of BBQ Pitmasters, joining us here on the show. John, you'd recall that the biggest issue before the season started had really nothing to do with the format at that point. It was about the host, Kevin Roberts. He has seems to have fallen nicely into the background, only taking a few hits here or there on social media pages. How do you feel he did during the shoot? How did he come off, do you think?
Well, Kevin was somebody that TLC was very much behind from the beginning to come in and take that role of a host. And I will leave it to the TLC folks to kind of figure out how he's fitting into it. Kevin's a nice guy, and he worked really hard, and he tried real hard. And, it's a very difficult job, like doing hosting duties. So I'm not quite sure how all that's going to basically fall out, except, we were able to put together a show using what Kevin gave us. And, he served us a great purpose there.
If this was John Markus and Greg Rempe Television Productions, who would we stick in the host spot instead, do you think?
Well, I really like this guy, John Markus.
Do you know?
I'm not built for television. I won't speculate on who a perfect host would be. There are a lot of great people that know how to do this out there. But, right now, Kevin's there, and Kevin was doing a good job for us, and you can see in the final cuts, he really helps us make those transitions and generate some excitement. So when the season 3 order comes in, maybe we'll play that game.
How good are you feeling about that right now?
What is very gratifying to me, and again, I want all the listeners out there and the people that are the haters to know I'm also a competition barbecue guy. I'm a pitmaster. I'm out there some weekends. I'm fortunate enough to get to cook on the big Bob Gibson team occasionally, and to be next to guys like Chris Lilly, and to cook alongside Myron Mixon on occasion. And so I really value how the world looks at this show. That's important to me. Then let's talk about the pure numbers. The show is being watched by more people this year than last season. It is the demos, which means you break down the audience, women 18 to 39, men 25 to 54, the retention we get coming out of Chopper, all those things have now ticked up.
And you think that has everything to do with the format change?
I think that's a big part of the format change. I think what we're doing is making barbecue more accessible to larger numbers of people. If you look at the show, there's a big part of the center of the show that is pure barbecue. It's a barbecue meat. It's a competition meat. And it was one of my jobs to make sure that we retained an element of that. But the fact that there are other things happening, there are other things that are being cooked that, people across America normally cook, that is allowing more people to come, it opens the door a little wider.
Now, there are a number of folks who think that maybe you were really forced into this change. If you had your druthers, you would have kept the same format as it was in the first season. So I guess just to make sure we clear this up, the network said we're going to need to make these changes or John Markus is going to have to go pound salt.
There was never that kind of discussion, but I'd like to remind all those viewers, it's called TLC, not the John Markus Network.
And your job is to get things on television.
To keep things on television, to make things as entertaining for America as possible. My day job is to write television and to do sitcoms, and I'm actively actually doing a pilot for NBC right now. I'm in the script writing stage. And I have to think of ways to get people engaged by something. And TLC and I did butt heads on things, but ultimately I felt what's best for the show is to keep the elements that really represent our community as well as bringing in more of an audience. So I was strapped to the wheel, and I'm happy I was.
John Markus joining us here on the Barbecue Central Show After Dark. John, did you ever consider, even for a fleeting moment, just taking your ball and going home and pitching the idea of the same format of season 1 to another network?
TLC has been extremely supportive of barbecue. I know there are purists that are going to go, no, they're not. But you have to understand the money and the time and the resources that TLC's put into continuing a presence on television that no other network has, that is about barbecue and about these big pits and these big names. And I think viewers are going to have a chance to see what the Food Network does with competition barbecue coming up in May. They just finished shooting a show that gave away some money and had some challenges, and that show will be there to be judged by these viewers alongside what TLC does for barbecue coming up.
By the way, John Markus is available for calls for anybody that wanted to jump in, 877-448-0433. Neil, Big Mr. Strada, joining us here in about 10 minutes from now or so. John, there was a statement made that the changes were made to increase exposure of barbecue to the masses. And I guess this is kind of my little intricate take on the whole thing. And again, we can equate that to who the hell am I? But nevertheless, the reality is, of course, that the majority of what is happening, and I know you said that there was a portion that is barbecue related, but there's a decent chunk of what's happening on the show week to week that's really not representative of any barbecue competition at all in any sanctioning body. There's no mid-cook elimination. There's more than 4 competitors at an event. Judges don't evaluate side by side and talk about the main meat entries, and there's no open conversation about how the turn-ins taste between judges. So if the goal was to expose more people to barbecue, would it have been a little bit better of an idea to hold true to maybe some more things instead of just, what meats, and show what the Pitmasters are going through weekend in and weekend out?
One thing to keep in mind is that a network that is of the size and of, the resources as TLC, they do a lot of testing. And they had season 1 of Pitmasters to look at, to test, to really parse out exactly what was connecting with people and what wasn't connecting with people. And remember, the show is not called KCBS Pitmaster Challenge. It's not a circuit on a show. And I think one of the problems that viewers get into is when they say, it must be what we know. Then you're basically shutting down what the possibilities of the show are. So we don't at any point say this is what KCBS contests are like across America. We are basically doing a contestant show. This is not the same animal. Now, that being said, I've used judges on my show that are KCBS. I've used master judges. I've used experienced judges. I've really had shows that have them out in front of the camera. It's really important that a judge be as engaging as a television audience as possible, that they're basically have a way of articulating, of interacting. And, that's where the game show element comes in. You want compelling and engaging personalities. So it's got to be seen as a different animal.
John Markus joining us here on the show, executive producer, creator of TLC's BBQ's Pitmasters, which will be back on air tomorrow, Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Check your local listings, of course. That kind of segues nicely into this next question. And and I've said it on the show, but perhaps some of this angst could have been avoided if, along with the format change, there was a name change along with that format change. That way no one's confused or disappointed. From what I've read, the ratings weren't really stellar from season 1, so changing the name wasn't necessarily going to hurt like a recognition or a branding thing. Was there a name change also considered at any point along with that format?
No, at no point was there a name change considered, and that is because so much time had been invested in establishing the name. And also keep this in mind too, Greg, which is that along with establishing the name, you have the investment in the artwork, in the logo branding, in the animation, in all this stuff. And it is such a great name. And it's not saying that it's a KCBS contest, but it's saying basically people who are able to master a pit, who are who are basically in control of heat and smoke, and who know how to manage that. Now that name's appropriate.
All right. So if when the first show aired, was there a point where everybody had to go back into the drawing board? Were there like any fixes or additional edits made to the remaining season episodes, or is everything the way it is? It was in the can. It stayed in the can until it plays for us.
No, that's what happened. Is TLC very wisely said, we're going to do the first show, and we're going to bring in the contestants, shoot the first show, and without a lot of rehearsal, we shot this first contest. And that contest is actually the contest you're going to see tomorrow night, the very first episode that we shot. And there was some retooling after that in order to technically capture the teams that were there to make the best uses of camera, of sound, of lighting, of direction. Contest rules were tweaked too. They weren't changed, but if you'll notice that the idea of an elimination was not something that was there from the beginning for the show. It was something that got adopted basically in order to heighten the stakes and also to really make the show as shootable as possible. So the elimination of a team actually gave us more cameras to focus on the top 3 teams in that show.
Now, when the teams show up, how much are they briefed ahead of time before they actually make the trek out of their house and then head over to Los Angeles? Do they know that this is what the format's going to be and there's going to be certain things that could possibly happen? Are they at least given all of the options before they head out, or is this something that they're made aware of as they pull into the lot?
Well, you know, you're going to have Big Mista on, and you've talked to Diva, and you could talk to Johnny Trigg and any of these folks, and I think what they're going to tell you, if they've looked at the materials that were sent to them, basically what every cook coming to that set knew is that anything could come their way. It was really important for us to let these folks know they really weren't going to get blindsided if they chose to open their eyes and to be fully prepared for anything that could go on that pit. So if you and I had been asked to be on a TV show that had these kind of rule changes and knew that there was going to be these elements that were possible and that were not in their normal wheelhouse, you and I would load our truck up with everything possible, right? I mean, why did Mo Kaysan show up with planks to cook? That's something you and I wouldn't take to a KCBS contest. Well, he kind of knew that he better be ready, that it was really things were going to start happening while he was there. So I think that anybody that was really open-minded about it would have said, you know what, I better be loaded for bear.
John Markus is our guest. John, I can't imagine how many hours of raw footage that you had. How difficult is it to take that, however many hours you have of just one of those competitions and whittling it down into 40 or 41 minutes or whatever it is of actual showtime?
Well, let's start by talking about season 1 for a second, which is that. Think about the job of editing that show, where we were on the road with people, we were up all night with people. I mean, that show was actually a more massive undertaking, and so much more material was in the can and then had to be whittled down to make 41 minutes. That was huge. So this is one of the reasons behind the change and the format introduction was that by establishing a contest that had acts like acts 1 through 6, really just definitive, and challenges, and the Pitfire challenge and the side dish challenge. All these things allowed us to make the show into really clear-cut segments, which, even though the editing is still massively difficult, it made it more manageable.
So in the conclusion here, how happy are you with season 2 as it sits right now? And obviously, we're not going to ask you who wins and seeing these mysterious photos all of a sudden popping up all over the internet, kind of suggesting who's in the finals, this or that. How much did you really like season 1? How much do you really like season 2? And is there like any mutual love between those two seasons for you?
Well, I'm thrilled that barbecue continues on television. I'm thrilled that TLC is invested in this show. And it's really gratifying to me to see that more people are getting to see elements of barbecue. Sure, you're going to – listen, I'm somebody who watches Iron Chef, and when that hour is over, I go, boy, I didn't learn a thing. I couldn't go home and make foam out of sea salt and turn it into, a pink terrine.
Right.
I mean, that really frustrates me. But I will say that when I looked at the episode that was on last week and just was rerun tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on TLC, that show was highly entertaining to me. And I got to say that I learned a bit about brisket watching that show. So there are things to really like. There's always in barbecue engaging personalities. When I get to see like a Joe Davidson on television, I mean, that's my go-to guy. I just love having him on TV. He really is a great sport and a gentleman and a good cook and a true one of the first ambassadors of barbecue. I get a big kick out of that. There are elements of the show that I'd love to change, and I'm hoping for a season 3 to go into, and I can't really go into that now. But any show I ever do, I look at and go, man, we could make it better.
This is John Markus. He's the executive producer of TLC's BBQ Pitmaster, also the creator, and again, that'll be on tomorrow night. Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as I had kind of thought the phone calls died off. But not surprising to me, unfortunately.
Well, I'll tell you, Greg, first of all, I love doing your show, and this show is a great service to Competition Barbecue. There's nothing like this, and that's why I sent you a note saying, hey, let's try another round here. And I'm there's a couple things I'm disappointed about. One is that none of the haters are calling.
Of course.
I would love to talk to them. I cook alongside these folks. I'm out there with them at times, so I really like interaction. And it was great to be at the Hudson Valley Rib Fest and to get to be among people who barbecue and to talk about things. And I find, again, when they're not able to do drive-bys like on the internet, they're kind of a little bit more like, they want to reason with you. They want to talk to you about it. I really feel that I'm the guy that's on the ground there in barbecue. And if you want to change things or if there's things you don't like, talk to me. Send me a note. People know how to reach me on Twitter and all that stuff. That's the way to kind of get your words heard, The other thing I want to say, do we have another minute?
Yep.
There was a great book that was out, a novel that was out about 15 years ago called The Witches of Eastwick, written by John Updike. And John Updike, was very proud of that book. It was commercially very successful. And then the movie came out. And as we all know, that was not a good movie.
What?
And the movie of The Witches of Eastwick, maybe you liked it.
Michelle Pfeiffer's hot, man.
Well, there ain't no argument here with that, Drake.
Right.
But a hot Michelle Pfeiffer don't make a good movie
That's
necessarily.
Right.
But for just reasons of argument here, people would go up to John Updike and they would say, I hate what they did to your book. And John Updike would say, they didn't do anything to my book. My book is up there on the shelf.
Right.
And all the people that are haters of the show, I want to say, Competition Barbecue exists as it always has and always will. KCBS is there. It's a fabulous organization. I love the folks that work there, even the folks that are not happy with the show. But this is only going to enhance Competition Barbecue, and it is existing in the pure forms. It's like it's a big world out there, and sometimes these things need to happen in order to bring more attention to the show. And again, we're a work in progress.
And how many other Emmy Award-winning TV producers are going to avail themselves to take shots? And it's very commendable. Look, I've gotten very few emails from folks that said, look, John's really showing the brass set here because he's coming on the show and commanding and demanding that people call in and take beef with him if they don't necessarily like the format of the show. So you gave them fair opportunity. Nobody calls in, which is fine. And you answer my questions, which you always do. And look, I certainly appreciate you taking time to do this show as well. I'm glad you like it. And we will continue to do this as long as you want to do it, John. Absolutely. And continued success with the show.
Well, I'm a big fan of your show and what you do for barbecue, and we're all just trying to get it out there. We're all trying to make it as good as we can get it, and I think it's important that this growing sport and pastime becomes something that is, as I have found now with this show, that is much more in the vocabulary of the public,
right.
And that's only a winning situation for all of us.
All right, John, take care, and thanks for coming on tonight.
Anytime, Greg.
All right, take care. There he is.
Thank you, sir.
John Markus. Calling from Columbus, baby. Home of the Buckeyes. Yeah, baby. Buckeyes. All right. We are rolling right now, by the way. We are rolling. That was John Markus. What'd you think? I mean, you had opportunity to jump in. If you don't like the show, you had opportunity to call in. I thought maybe no one would call in, and I was right. Love to be right. Damn, I love to be right. Look, I understand it's tough to call and actually be able to confront somebody there when you have the opportunity. I know what that's all about. I can dig it. So, look, you either like what he had to say or you don't like what he had to say. You either like the show or you don't like the show. And while I'm not necessarily a fan of that format of show, I like the people on the show. So I'm screwed either way. All right. Let's go ahead and race over to the hotline. And joining me now is a true barbecue entrepreneur. He's a competitive barbecue cook. He's made a number of TV appearances. He's the spokesperson for the Fresh and Easy stores who'll be on tomorrow's episode of TLC's BBQ Pitmasters, baby. It is the one and only Big Mista, Neil Straughter, joining us. Neil, how are you?
Yes, sir.
How you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
All right. I got to say, it's very awkward. I can see you, but you can't see me, right?
No, and that might be a good thing.
Oh, I can goddamn guarantee you that's a good thing, Neil.
Hey, before we go any further, how cool is John Markus?
Well,
he's like the nicest gangster I've ever seen. He's real cool, but he's really saying, "Where all you punks at? How come you ain't stepping to me now?"
Nobody's more surprised than me waking up on a Saturday, fresh off a natural light hangover, to see an email from John Markus saying, "Okay, I'm ready to come on the show. Book me, and I'm ready to take on all comers, and I would really like to take calls." So obviously we did a little jockeying around with some time spots with you, which I appreciate your flexibility and, not in a weird way there, Big Mister. But, to give him that half hour and to not see the phone calls come in, again, it wasn't really a surprise to me because as I had opened up previous shows with other guests that really wanted to get a piece of somebody per se, and then given the opportunity, it rarely happens. I didn't figure there would be too much here, but just the fact that, who he is and what kind of things that he has accomplished to come on this show, I couldn't be any less of a nobody. And he makes time for the show. He's asked to come on the show. So, I mean, that really is a stand-up thing to do, and it takes a lot of balls to come on and anticipate getting some shots thrown your way. So, yeah, I agree with you. Very cool and ready to take on all comers. And what can you say? I mean, and certainly you've actually had some personal experience with it. So, first of all, I don't know how much you were able to listen to the interview with John Markus that I just did, but
I heard the whole thing.
What reaction do you have to what he had to say, and where do you disagree, and where do you agree with what he had to say?
I really agree with just about everything he said. I mean, as far as what we knew going in, I mean, we received paperwork, big, long contracts and agreements and all this stuff explaining that really anything could happen. You need to be prepared to cook anything at any time. And when we got there, I mean, most of the first day we were there was spent with lawyers explaining all this stuff to us, every little detail in there. So there was no real surprise, if somebody said, I was so surprised, I didn't know it was going to be like that, then you weren't paying attention.
Now, you're going to be on tomorrow's episode. So that'll be Thursday night, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Can you give me a big picture thought? What was the experience like for you as a whole? And then we'll get into a little bit more of the minutia here in a minute.
As a whole, I mean, I had a ball. I really did. I mean, it was tough. At times it was stressful. You had to think on your feet. But, I mean, the teams that I was competing against, the crew there, I mean, we loved everybody. We had such a good time, and we were the guinea pigs. We were the first ones up. So, there, like you said, there were some changes that came after our episode, and part of it was our suggestions. They actually came and asked us, what did we like? What would we do different? And how would you change things like that? So we were able to give input, and I don't know if any of it would show up this season, but if there's a next season, maybe they'd incorporate some of our suggestions.
Were you surprised that you were picked to be on the show?
Yeah. I mean, I knew all the people that were sending in videos. They were up on YouTube, and I saw a lot of great ones, and there are a lot of people who've won more contests than I have. But then again, you have to think, it's TV. Just because you can cook doesn't mean that you're entertaining. And the video that I sent, I tried to be as entertaining as possible. So that's the angle. I mean, the video that I sent in, I didn't do a lot of cooking. The only cooking you saw was really just pictures of turning boxes that I put at the end. It was just me being silly.
Yeah, I can tell you who also did a video that had no cooking with those guys from Hot Grill on Grill Action. Zero cooking in their video. So that's what I like to see. It's all about personality. So, I mean, you liked the event, obviously, as a whole. Was there anything that you didn't like?
The thing that I didn't like, and I told him about this, is I would have preferred blind judging. Still have the contestants line up in front of them, but as the plates go up, don't tell the judges whose meat or side dishes or whatever they're tasting. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
Because, some of the people were famous, Johnny Trigg, Joe Davis. These people have been out competing for years. And if anybody knows that, there's a chance that it could color their perception if you know that that's whose food you're eating.
Is there a potential, though, that because probably Myron Mixon is the only one who's going to really be able to pick out who the big names are and who are kind of the more successful people, just as far as competition is concerned? Warren Sapp probably isn't going to know Johnny Trigg from, me if we walked up and kissed him on the lips in the street. We'd both get punched in the face. And then, of course, I don't know, Art Smith would probably have any idea who a lot of these, bigger names are, too. So potentially that could have offset, who's big and who's not, maybe not.
Well, then, but if you pay attention when they're announcing them, when they're taking, they'll say, okay, and here is the legend Johnny Trigg, or
right,
or the grand champion Joe Davison, or super, and the people who haven't competed and don't have as many championships or awards or notoriety behind them. There's not much you can say about them, so they're introduced differently. So perceptions can be colored. That's just human nature. If I tell you you're going to eat a rib from an ordinary guy and you're going to eat a rib from a grand champion, and I tell you which one it is, your perception's colored.
Sure.
But if I give you two and ask you which one you like and then tell you, there's a better chance you're going to actually pick what you think is a better rib, and there's no altering of what your taste as you face it,
Neil Straughter joining us here. He is Big Mista, and his website is Big Mista. There's no S like I put it in the stupid newsletter. I apologize, Neil. BigMista.com, and he is also a Twitter person, at Big Mista's BBQ, if you want to follow his tweets there on the Twitter world.
Please follow me.
The blind judging, something you would like to see, something that you didn't like was the open judging. Anything else that you would have liked to see revised for upcoming seasons?
Outside of that, that was my only big beef. You'd like to see judges who have more experience with barbecue. It's nice to have somebody that doesn't have as much experience, but you at least want them to have their own opinion. And I won't go any deeper into that because I don't want to get in trouble, but I wasn't happy with all the judging. I've been watching these episodes, and you see them actually discussing the scores.
Right.
And it would be my thing. Why aren't you writing the score first, handing it off, and then discussing what you did? Because if there's someone there with a stronger personality, they can influence the other judges.
Mm-hmm.
I'm and truly not saying that this has happened, but the possibility is there. So I would think that they would write their scores down, turn them in, and then talk about what they had.
Did you have a issue at all with these elimination challenges? So you're told whatever the big meat, the main dish is going to be, you start getting that going, and all of a sudden Kevin Roberts calls you over and says, okay, we're going to make whatever the side dish, or not the side dish, but whatever the side missile challenge is, and you put that up, and then if you don't make it through there, you don't even get to have your barbecue main dish tasted at all. You're sent packing. Is that just going to be TV is TV, or did you not like that, or did you dig it and you want to do it again?
I didn't like it, but I guess it might be exciting. It's something to talk about. The funny thing about it is, like you said, like John just said, we were the guinea pigs. The elimination wasn't there for our first episode.
So that was added after you guys.
That was added after us. And then at some point they decided to switch the order of the episodes around. They're not shown in the order that they were taped. I would assume that it's because they thought something they saw in a later episode would have been more compelling. Maybe it was that they thought the elimination would be more compelling, something else to get people talking. And it worked because people are talking, So I was really happy overall with everything. There's just little things that and there's always room for improvement.
So if there was no elimination that took place with you guys, do you have any idea if they're going to be kind of doing something in post-production that's going to show when you guys getting eliminated at some point, or this show not going to have an elimination?
If John didn't say, I'm not saying.
Oh, come on. Nobody's listening right now, Neil. It's just me and you. Go ahead.
You want to know the truth?
Sure. We can't put you in legal trouble. So what we need to do is watch Big Mista tomorrow night. That's Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on TLC, and we'll find out for ourselves how they do that. Did they tell you at all, like, how they're going to take the raw footage that they had, which was probably hours and hours on end, and ultimately make you guys look or come across on television? Or are you worried, or are you going to find out just like the rest of us?
I'll find out when all I've seen is the little clips, and Danielle is hilarious. Where the hell are your taste buds? She's funny.
How weird is it, or cool, or disturbing is it to see you on the television yourself? I know it's disturbing for me, but I mean for you.
I've done some other stuff, so it doesn't really affect me as much anymore. I did a show on HGTV called Overhead. It's a home improvement show. I've done, I do the stuff for Fresh and Easy, so I'm doing news spots all the time. So it's kind of old hat for me to see myself.
Is there any type of trepidation for you when you're tuning in tomorrow where they could make you look something like you really aren't? Is there any worry about that?
I missed a little bit of that. What, can you ask me that again?
Yeah, I said, is there any trepidation on your part as you tune in tomorrow at 10 where they might edit you and make you look different than how you really are day to day?
I know that it could happen, and we went in with our eyes wide open. We know that there's a chance that we could come out looking like goofballs. There is that chance.
Fingers crossed, right?
Bottom line is I'm on TV.
Right.
And hopefully it'll help my business grow. And like I said, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how it's going to look. Spell my name right, and maybe if I get lucky, they'll put up my website.
All right. Now, I talked about this with John Markus here at the end, and he gave me a bunch of reasons on why it probably wasn't the best idea. But I said, a lot of this hassle could have been potentially eliminated with a lot of the drive-by hating, where if you just would have changed the name of the show. And, he said, well, there's graphics and there's artwork and there's animations and all this stuff that I, of course, don't care about because it's not my money. But with putting that in a vacuum and leaving that aside, would changing the name have been a good thing to do, and could that have eliminated some of the heat that the show got initially here over the first couple weeks?
I think that is a possibility. And if they would have done that, they could have left an opening to go back and do another documentary type show under the Pitmasters name and have two things even running concurrently. You can have the competition challenge going over here and have the road trip going, on something completely different. So, that's a possibility, but, there's money constraints, I guess, I don't know a whole lot about how things work on the network end, but, and then I was listening to John and he said that, well, there's so much money, for doing that episode, where they travel all around and follow these characters, and this was cheaper to do. I would have thought, if this is cheaper to do, why can't we take some of the money that we saved and use it to change the name?
Businessman.
And then like I say, I have no idea how those things really work, but that's just off the top of my head, just listening to him. That's the first thing that popped in my mind.
Right, so what's the best advice you could give someone looking to I'm sorry, I've gone ahead of my questions there. Let's back up a second here, Neil.
Okay.
and we won't talk really anymore about the show here for at least a few more minutes, but for those who don't know who you are, I mean, you're very active on the Barbecue Brethren site. As we said, you're active on the Facebook, and you got the Twitter thing going on. But for those that don't know you, there's a lot of Centralites here that are just here for the entertainment value because they love me, of course.
How could they not?
Of course. How about a little background about you and how you just became interested in this whole barbecue thing?
Wow. I tell folks that I was born in California and I was raised in Texas. And they always ask me, well, did you learn how to barbecue in Texas? And I tell them, no, I learned on the internet. Literally most of everything that I learned about the process of barbecue, I learned on the Barbecue Brethren.
So
I really did.
What was the spark for you, though? I mean, did you eat a good piece of barbecue and you're like, man, I have to replicate this at some point? Or what pushed you into it?
Alton Brown cooking a pork butt in a flower pot.
That was it.
That was it. I saw if he can do that, I can come up with a way to cook some barbecue on the balcony of my small apartment. So I went out and got a little smoker and got in, and I got online trying to figure out how to actually use this thing. And somebody invited me over to the Barbecue Brethren site. And they asked me, well, how do you cook? Give us a little background. I said, well, when I cook my ribs, I take them and I put all these seasonings on them. They said a rub, okay. And I say, and then I pour some Worcestershire sauce on them, and then I pour malt liquor over them and let them sit in the refrigerator overnight.
Why?
And they said, kind of strange, but a marinade. Okay, we can go with that. I said, then I take the whole pan and I stick it in the oven and cook them for about 3 hours, and then I put them on the grill to get some smoke. And they laughed at me for about 3 days.
Yeah.
They said, man, you boiling your ribs. But they took me under their collective wing and decided to show me the ropes. And this was back in 2004.
Wow.
And I remember the first time I cooked a brisket, I had Phil in New York, the Grand Poobah.
Right.
Phil, he was calling me. KCQ, rest in peace, Scott in Kansas City, and Bill was up in Chicago. These guys called me every hour on the hour during my first brisket cook to make sure I did it right. I said, and that's love right there. You just don't find that on any other forum. I mean, it's really family to me. And they sucked me in, and I've been doing it ever since. They always tease me. They go back and find the first post I put up where I said, I'm scared to cook a brisket because I don't want to ruin an expensive piece of meat. Now I'm cooking, 40 briskets a week. So
there you go. This is Neil Strawder. He is the Big Mista. BigMista.com is his website. Neil, when you master the backyard, everything is good. There's a certain portion of us that say, my shit's good, and I'm going to step up and start competing. And you've done that as well. When did you actually start sniffing around competitions?
It was probably the following year, around 2005. I started sniffing around. I went to a competition or two, and I really liked what I saw. I met some of the people from the Brethren, some of the California people at a contest, and they let me hang out with them and watch and see how it went on. And around this time, I started writing a blog also. It was called Survival Gourmet. And, when you write a blog, you tend to go to other people's blogs, you link to them, you comment on other people's blogs, they comment on your blogs. And there was a guy writing one called The Barbecue Junkie here in LA. Mm-hmm. And we talked back and forth about barbecue all the time. And we found out that there was a barbecue contest coming here to LA. It was over at the Autry Museum. And I said, you know what? We talk about other people's barbecue all the time. Why don't we put our money where our mouth is and go jump in this competition? And he said, no. So I called him. I challenged his manhood. I called him all kind of cream puffs and marshmallows. And he finally gave in. He said, but we're going to get some help. So we contacted Sylvia Curry and Professor Shuji Sakai, who are actually the people that are cooking with me on the Pitmasters. And we decided we were going to form a team. And our team name was 4Q. And we actually met for the first time in person 2 weeks before the contest.
Wow.
And we just did a practice cook, and we decided we were going to jump in and go do it. And, our motto was have fun, don't come in last.
Right.
And we actually got a walk. We got a fifth and ribs the first time out, and we were hooked.
That's usually what it takes, right? I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've interviewed somebody and said, well, we didn't really want to do it, or we just kind of did it and to hope not finish last, and then all of a sudden they either got a walk in a category or they won the whole damn thing.
That's right. And that sucked us in, so we kept doing it. And after a while, my wife started looking at the bills for these contests, and she said, you got to stop taking this money out of our joint account to go compete. It's just getting to be too much. She said, you need to sell some dinners or something. So I started, making these little $10 dinners, chicken or brisket or ribs, and I'd take them to her job or to my job or other people's jobs, and I'd take orders and just go drop off dinners to make money so I could go compete. And the word starts spreading. Next thing I know, we're getting catering orders. I was like, okay, I'm catering from my balcony. I have a char griller, and by this time I have one of the first ugly drum smokers. And I'm cooking meat, all day and night, trying to get stuff done for these catering orders, and things just kept snowballing. And then I said, well, why don't we go start selling at the farmers markets? We're growing. So we moved into our first house, and my housewarming present when we moved in from my wife, she bought me a spice wine smoker.
Oh, nice.
How great is she? I come and
the
all
best.
my friends know about.
She's the best ever.
Yes. All my friends, she talked to all my friends about it. Jay Curry over there at Spice Wine, she had been going back and forth with him. Got my logo put on the side of it and everything. And I just come home. We haven't even been in the house a week yet. And I come home, and there's this Spice Wine just sitting in the driveway. And I just fell out. I was so amazed. And she said, now to pay for it, you're going to have to go out and start selling some more stuff. So we got into the farmer's market, and it just kind of blossomed. So
the impetus for you taking what you really like to do was really to fund and fuel your competition bug that you had. So you were kind of getting into this whole catering and doing barbecue as a quote-unquote job, making money, strictly to fund you going out to do more competitions.
That's how it started. And, I was still working at the time. I was working as a banker for Wells Fargo. I was working in treasury management, which is basically customer service for big companies. The Gap or somebody calls in and said, we made a deposit of $62 million yesterday, and we're missing a check for $35. Can you find it? Yes, I can find it. That was my job. Hated it, but, it paid the bills. So we started doing these farmers markets, and, I got on Twitter and I got on Facebook, and I was talking to, trying to get people to come out. And then we started doing one in Atwater Village, and I guess the people over there are a little more computer savvy. They started going on Chowhound and Yelp and all these places and talking about us. Well, when that happened, then the newspapers also read these things, so they started coming out. And, so next thing I know, I'm getting reviewed by restaurant critics and the editor and from the LA Times comes by, and everybody's talking about our barbecue, and the business started growing. I started in November of 2008, I think it was. No, November 2007. And then we said by August of 2008, I was going to quit my job. I actually ended up quitting in February because we grew so fast.
Wow.
And here just recently, 2 months ago, my wife just quit her job. So we're both full-time in the business now. And we don't have a restaurant.
I was going to say, you're doing these markets. I mean, for the people that I guess don't really understand, I mean, are you buying spot every day, or how does your whole business, run with a bunch of, you're at 2 or 3 different, farmers markets during the course of a week? How does that whole setup work out?
Actually, we have 5 markets now.
Wow, 5. Okay.
So we're cooking all the time. I have a kitchen that, I belong to the Moose Lodge, and they let me use their kitchen, for all our prep work. And we're cooking all the time. And we just show up at the market, set up some easy ups, and we got the smoker on a trailer behind us, and stuff is coming out, and we're serving it up and selling it. We're doing brisket and ribs and tri-tip and pulled pork, and we even sell pig candy and moink balls.
Is the menu? I've talked to maybe a small handful of guys that have gotten into the restaurant business when it comes to barbecue, and certainly you fall into that because you're vending it off for money. Mm. Do you keep, or was it a goal to keep the menu as uncomplicated as possible and really stick with what those few core items very well, and know that they sell well?
That was my idea. My wife has a different idea. If it was up to her, we'd sell 27,000 different things. And I told her, you can't suggest that until you come out here and start cooking it.
Right.
Until you walk a mile in my shoes, because we're out there, middle of the night trying to check temps and cook all this stuff. She said, well, why don't you just leave and go to the market earlier? Okay, when exactly do you expect me to sleep? Yeah.
What sleep?
Yeah, exactly. People ask, do you have days off? No, I have hours off. That's about it. But, I knew I wanted to keep the traditional barbecue meats. I wanted to keep, brisket, pulled pork, ribs, and chicken. Not so much chicken, but, we're in California, so I got to do it. But, chicken is a pain sometimes because, when you smoke chicken, it turns pink.
Right.
And for folks that aren't around barbecue, they think it's not cooked. And I get tired of doing that explanation all the time. No, look at the chicken. It's pink around the outside and brown on the inside. Do you think it cooked from the inside out? So, I get tired of explaining it, but, we've built up such a following now that I don't even have to do it anymore. My customers, if somebody else is in line behind them, they'll explain it to them. So, we're branching out. We're doing other things occasionally. We're doing, we've added smoked turkey to the menu now, and that's a big hit. Occasionally we'll do pulled pork nachos or brisket chili during the winter time. But I really like to I'd rather do a few things very well than be okay at a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah, I always think that the simpler menu, the better, because that's what I'm going to do when I open up my barbecue store. Never. Again, we're talking with Neil Strawder. He is Big Mista. BigMista.com is his website. And if you're out there in the Los Angeles area, you want to get your mouth around some great barbecue, that's the guy to go see. Neil, obviously you're benefiting from a great region of the country known for spectacular weather, pretty much 365. If you lived somewhere else, say the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame city of Cleveland, Ohio, do you think that you would be doing this, or maybe not because of the seasonal changes that we actually have to incur?
Yeah, I wouldn't be out in the cold. I don't do cold. So that would hinder me. I would do it maybe as, during the summer, spring, summer, fall, but wintertime, no. Now, if I actually had a restaurant, would I still go out and do these, the things outside? Yes. Even when we do get our restaurant here, I still plan to do the farmers markets because I like going out into the different areas and talking to, customers in different parts of the city. My customers in El Segundo aren't the same as my customers in Atwater Village or in Torrance. So, I get to talk to a lot of different people, and I actually get to take the food to them. Whereas if I'm only in one place, I have to count on people coming to me. And while they might do it the first couple of times, after a while, getting on the 405 freeway gets to be a pain, and I understand that. So I'm taking that out of the equation, and I'm going to where they are to give them the food.
So when's the time frame for the Big Mista's restaurant?
We're looking for a spot now. If somebody listening has a spot in mind, please contact me. You can go to Big Mista's Barbecue on Facebook, and that is spelled with a C, not a Q.
That's right. BARBECUE, the way you're supposed to spell it, by the way.
Exactly.
As I had mentioned earlier, Neil, you obviously do some competing. You're running with some of the best in the West out there. How do you think that competition barbecue and the product that you're putting out there differs perhaps from the middle portion of the country, and then, of course, out further east?
I think here in the West, you can get away with some bolder flavors, some maybe even spicier flavors that you can't do, especially in the Midwest. I mean, because I went to the Royal last year and I'm going this year. And the stuff that I tasted, while it was very good and very well prepared, from my palate, it was very mild. Very sweet. And here I don't have to go as sweet. Personally, I prefer barbecue to be savory. That's me.
Mm-hmm.
Judges don't seem to think so. They think, especially, as you start traveling in another part of the country, they want sweet barbecue, and I've never understood that. I'm not a fan of sweet meat, but, you don't cook for yourself in a contest, you cook for the judges.
Have you ever taken a cooking class? They seem to be very popular right now.
Not yet, but my wife just told me, she said, you need to start taking some cooking classes. I said, but I can cook. She said, but go take the classes, go visit all the people that are at the top of the game in competition. And I said, really? She said, yeah. She said, I might even go take a judging class. I was like, who are you and what have you done with my wife?
Yes. Who are you and keep my old wife away?
Yeah. She's encouraging me to go out and take some classes, so I'm doing some research now. I know one I want to take just because it's close and I can do it. Is I want to take Harry Sue's class.
Yeah,
Harry's a good friend of mine. Actually, we just did a few spots on a local news station here together Monday. So we did. They had us on cooking crazy ideas for Labor Day barbecue. And Harry did, a bacon turtle, which is basically like that sausage with the bacon weave over it and shaped like a turtle.
Yeah.
He did the barbecue spaghetti and the seared ahi tuna, and I did some riblets, which you don't see outside of Applebee's much, But the store that the Fresh and Easy, they actually carry them. So I bought some of those and cooked some of those. Love to eat those. They're a great snack. And I did. A pork loin. It was a smoky garlic pork tenderloin, and I did it with orange Dijon sauce. And the other thing I did was the bacon monkey muffins.
Bacon monkey muffins.
Bacon. Have you ever had monkey bread?
No.
It's kind of like a sweet pull apart bread. What I did, instead of just leaving it like that, it's usually a big thing done in a bundt pan.
Right.
What I did is I saw this recipe for the monkey muffins on a website. I think it was the Pioneer Woman Cooks. And she made these things, and I made them. They were great, but I just can't leave well enough alone.
Right.
So inside of each piece of dough, I actually took some bacon and wrapped it up before I put it in the tin. And I put like 3 of them in each tin so that when they rise and bake, they'd all bake together. But there's bacon in each bite. Then I put bacon on the top, along with the cinnamon and butter and sugar.
Oh my.
And then when they were finished, I made a butter brandy glaze that I drizzled all over them. And they are pretty amazing. They'll probably put you in a sugar coma.
Right.
But it's worth it just for those few bites.
Now, when you're competing, are you making your own sauces and rubs to use at the event, or are you buying stuff that's already out there, already made?
Used all my own. Even my injection is my own. So I've people have approached me and they say, why don't you use some of the commercial stuff?
Yeah.
And I could probably do it and win, because I have a good idea of what people are using that are winning. And I feel I can cook along with that. But my thing is I'm trying to develop something different because of my business. I want to be able to say this is what I use and be able to promote it, and then eventually create another stream of income. So I have to keep doing what I do, and I'm turning in products that I developed, and they're mostly the same things that I use in the business. So I can say this when I'm out there at the farmer's market and I'm yelling, trying to get people to come over, I say, come over and eat some award-winning barbecue. Well, it is, because I just won, a few weeks ago with this same recipe.
Right. And is there a spot where you think if people liked Big Mista's rub and Big Mista's sauce that, and I've heard this happen with some other people that got into this aspect, where they're actually coming to you to use your rubs for their barbecue during competition events?
I'm sure that will happen. If I can get it to where I'm consistently successful, then I'm sure that'll happen. You look at, Plowboys or Butchers or Cosmos, they came with something that they used in contests and, they're successful. That's what's happening. So I know it's possible. It's just a matter of developing the right product.
Neil Strawder is the owner of Big Mista's Barbecue. You can see him on TV tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on TLC's BBQ Pitmasters. Neil, it was great to finally track you down and sit down and talk some barbecue with you. Good luck on the show tomorrow, although you probably know what's going to happen. But I certainly appreciate you coming on tonight, and we'll do it again soon.
Thanks a lot for having me on. I really appreciate it.
All right, man, take care. There he is, Neil Big Mista Strawder. Give me a break. Strawder. I'm talking like I'm from Boston. Strawder. Sorry. Again, his website is bigmista, not plural, .com, BIGMISTA.com. And his Twitter is plural, by the way. Big Mistas, MISTAS, BBQ. Big Mistas, BBQ.com. And there you go. So it's a wonderful thing. So that's pretty much it for me. I mean, we could probably sit here and react to for another hour on what's transpired here tonight. And we're 2 hours and 9 minutes and 52 seconds in to the show. Great way to pound off. That didn't sound right. Great way to have a new night for the show here over the next 15 weeks. Outstanding. I'm very appreciative of everybody that decided to come out tonight. Appreciate it. And that would be Celeste Dwyer from Taste of the Deerfield Valley. She was on in the 9 o'clock hour. Also on the 9 o'clock hour was Derek Riches from About.com. bbq.about.com. This is direct link. And, of course, jumping on the 10 o'clock hour, we had leading off the After Dark segment John Markus, executive producer, Emmy Award-winning executive producer. Then I just got done talking with Big Mista. You know him as Neil Strawder. BigMista.com. John Markus, I have no website for you. He says, check out the Barbecue Central Radio show on the Barbecue Central Radio networks, the bbqcentralshow.com. We're loaded for next week, Wednesday, and until 9 p.m. Eastern, next Wednesday. This is your proud host. Proud host? This is your host and proud U.S. American, Greg Reppy. Good night now.